What is up, one and all? Welcome to a brand new video of which I actually don't know how long this video is going to be. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this, and videos like this being what? Well, we're talking about a couple of rumors today. Regardless of whether they're true or not, it most certainly opens some very, very interesting conversation that we're going to get into. So today's topics are Aquaman 2 and what could be going on there. And then, of course, the lovely Batman. The Batman Part 2. It's just going to be interesting because rumors, the sources, some more than others, and then, even the others are a bit because at the end of the day, this is a rumor. This is a rumor video. So I've been going on for a bit already in this intro. Let's get right into it. The DC Universe, the DCU, no longer the DCEU. We've known for a while that, Aquaman 2, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, has been meaning to come out for a very long time. And I believe it's been having test screenings for a long time as well. And from what we've heard, don't forget, it's been changed up quite a bit as well. You may remember under the old regime, apparently Michael Keaton was appearing in test screenings of a certain scene, and that kind of made sense because that was the trajectory of the fallout of the Flash movie under the old regime. Keaton was going to carry on. But then that kind of changed around, and then we have Ben Affleck in there, right? And it looked like, okay, Ben Affleck's going to replace Michael Keaton's role as Bruce Wayne in the movie. But then, is this even happening anymore? Because James Gunn, with the Gods and Monsters DCU reveal video, he quite literally said that the Flash movie resets the entire DC universe, then you get the Blue Beetle movie, and I take this more of a chapter 0, kind of like a prelude, if you will, to chapter 1, because, as a lot of people like to remind me, and I think it's a very relevant thing to bring up, James Gunn says, where the DCU really begins is with Superman Legacy, but if he kind of says what you're about to hear on screen right now.
The Flash, a fantastic movie that I really love, that resets the entire DC universe, and then into Aquaman 2, which leads directly into our next few projects, which I'm going to tell you about now. This first chapter is called Gods and Monsters.
Well, that does kind of make it seem that after The Flash resets the entire DC universe, those projects come afterwards, and they're kind of a part of the DCU, even though they're not really kicking off the main DCU storyline. The reason why I wanted to mention all of this is because clearly things are a bit strange because these are movies from that of the old regime. Well, certain scoopers, of which, again, take this with such a huge grain of salt, please. But hey, that's the point of this video. We've had viewer Anon say, I'll be honest, we're half a dozen test screenings in and it's not looking great. I've consistently heard over the last half year or so that it's boring. Not as good as the first, and potentially one of the worst DCEU movies. Now, that is very bold. As for, the credibility, again, I will always say, whether you've encountered View Anonymous or some of the other scoopers in this video that we're going to cover, to be credible sometimes, or sometimes not credible, but credible more times than other times, you can never really take everything as the gospel truth. But again, the point of this video is to just entertain it for discussion's sake. If this is true, this is pretty devastating. And also, if it is true, it wouldn't really surprise me. That's something I do want to say. James Wan with Aquaman 2, it would be a mighty shame, obviously, after the first movie made $1 billion+ in the box office. And obviously the shame being, well, if this has all happened, James Wan has had to deal with Aquaman 2, among many things, like the whole regime change, old leadership going, the merger with Discovery and Warner Brothers, David Zaslav coming in. We had James Gunn and Peter Safran come in. And, that's also after all the Amber Heard stuff as well. And it's just, I'm not saying it's like all of these events made the movie terrible, but clearly something has been going on. If you're hypothetically, and I need to stress that before anyone thinks that this is my bottom line opinion, I'm just entertaining this hypothetically. If it was true, you would have to think it's like this amalgamation of stuff going on. And one thing that stood out to me, even if I haven't always kept a mega keen eye on Aquaman 2 and the production, is that whenever I did hear about it, it felt like something else was being rewritten. And this movie has been delayed so many times, like the Flash movie, but I would say Aquaman 2 at various states has been almost ready to release at certain points in time. You may hear about, certain test screenings right now saying, there's still some VFX to be finished, but they're probably on the reshot parts. Don't forget that Aquaman 2 has had various release dates from way before where we are right now. And understandably, it's been shuffled around here, there, everywhere. And you have to wonder why the major plot changes, if, again, that is reportedly true. Obviously, the Keaton stuff is self-explanatory. I believe that was also just not even in a major scene when Keaton originally appeared. So that being removed or even changed to Ben Affleck, and even if Ben Affleck's scene's been removed, I don't know. But even if it was, I don't think that would significantly change the movie. If anything, that was just connective tissue to the future that would have once been. The main point of what I'm trying to say is the Batman stuff isn't major plot changes. So why have they changed it around so much? And we've got another scooper here by the name of Big Screen Leak saying, there's a reason I've been avoiding any questions about Aquaman and The Lost Kingdom. But since Viewer Non put it out there, it brings me no joy to back him up and tell you that the test screenings for this film have not been good. Really hoping one fixes this movie before December. Even going on to say, I heard that something that almost never happened in test screenings happened with this movie. They're really going to need to fix this one and fix it fast. Now, what is that thing that would have happened that never really happens in test screenings? Well, one thing that doesn't really happen in test screenings is people walking out. And in another tweet, he basically said that's what it was. So again, whether you choose to believe this or not, let's just say, hypothetically, this was true. That would be pretty damn insane. Aquaman 2 so bad in the latest changes test screening that a individual, or maybe more than one individual, has walked out because they couldn't even take what they saw in the test screening. One thing I do need to caution, if this is hypothetically true, going along that, is that this is what test screenings are for. They're going to try and adapt to this and make it better, maybe even reverse some of the changes. Test screenings are called test screenings for a reason. And I shouldn't really need to explain that one. And I do hope that if this is true for the millionth time, that they can amend this. And it is strange to me because, as I scroll down, these same scoopers around the summer of last year, the test screenings for Aquaman 2 back then were mostly positive. So this makes sense with what Viewer Non says as well. The last half a year, he's been hearing that it's been boring and whatnot. But I think that's the point, right? So if it was being said that Aquaman 2 was kind of testing well as of July 2022, that was quite a few months ago. So sometime between there and now, something's happened in that meshing of things until now, where the latest test screenings aren't as good as what the ones were roughly in the summer of 2022. And again, to stress, this can be massively shifted. We may hear in the future that test screenings are positive again. A recent example is, I believe even Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania reshot its ending not long at all before it was even released in theaters. Now, this movie, Aquaman 2, has until December to try and amend whatever the heck, again, hypothetically, assuming this is true, is going on here with these negative reactions in the test screening. I do think there is some credence, in my own personal opinion here, of me leaning towards that there could be some merit of truth there. I can't validate what these scoopers are saying. I don't think anyone can unless it was officially talked about, obviously. But I think the reason why I lean towards maybe, just maybe entertaining it is because of the shuffle development that this movie has had left, right, and center amongst all of the, stuff that James Gunn, as I prefaced this rumor with in the first place, has had to deal with. The regime changes, the merger, the universe changes, the plan changes, the DCEU to the DCU changes. Even though I don't think this movie is going to incorporate any massive story elements that make it be a part of Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, I would never go in expecting that. I definitely think there's been some things overall with all of this stuff that has been going on at Warner Brothers Discovery for the past couple of years that have negatively impacted the movie on the inside, on the inside development team, the creatives, and I don't know what that could exactly be, but we've heard several things by now, even outside of the test screenings, that don't really make this sound like an impossibility. But let's now move on to rumor number 2, and this is the second time in a short amount of time we are visiting the town of Randolph. Yes, Grace Randolph. And Grace Randolph, lo and behold, just like the last rumor we spoke about in the past couple of weeks, she said that one of the old Batmen, the previous Batman actors of the past, was going to cameo at the end of the Flash movie and potentially stay on as the Batman of the DCU. And she replied in various tweets to other people that that's apparently no sealed deal, but that's what they want to be able to achieve. I'm paraphrasing, but she replied to someone saying that's what they're trying to do, like, sign a dotted line. Now, that's not true. That is not true. James Gunn debunked it, right? But, however, it does seem as though one of the previous Batman actors, such as George Clooney, will be cameoing at the end of the Flash movie. So, a bit of a half-right situation there. So, this rumor surrounding the Batman Part 2. Let's read it out first and foremost. So the Batman Film News says that the sequel to the Batman is set to begin filming this November, with pre-production and casting starting soon. So here's my take on this. In terms of information like this, the thing I find fascinating about this somewhat scoop, if you will, is that to me it just sounds like a very easy, educated guess. And what I mean by educated guess is that it doesn't sound like massively surprising. So mostly what I mean by that is, if you have some kind of knowledge of movies, or even that of the first movie, what Matt Reeves is up to right now with Matt and Tomlin, penning the script for the Batman Part 2, the release date, you take that, most importantly, into account with October 3rd, 2025, and you just kind of think, okay, well, I'm not saying Grace is lying or making this up, I'm just saying if I wanted to put it out there and just be like, oh yes, something's gonna happen at the end of this year, things are gonna really start kicking off, that wouldn't feel like so much of a shot in the dark, if you know what I mean. Now, with that being said, and again, back to me saying I'm not blowing smoke on my own ass, I've been saying that this year, especially come the fall, September, October, November-ish, we are going to start hearing those things like, do you remember those articles way back when, where it's like, oh, Jonah Hill could be playing the Penguin, or the Riddler, or Paul Dano has been tapped to play the Riddler, or even Robert Pattinson is in the shortlist to play the Batman. That's when we're going to start to probably hear a lot more things like that. But when it comes to Grace Randolph here saying filming in November, I'm not entirely sure about that one. I'm not saying that's impossible, but what we have to consider is a few things we need to take into account. The most key and king thing here is the release date of October 3rd, 2025. I hope I didn't get that wrong, but it's October 2025, right? So the first movie had a long shoot, an 18-month shoot. Now, in the industry, that is absolutely insane, but in the time that the Batman Part 1 was shooting in, it wasn't so insane. I mean, it was an insane time. It's just, the delays that the pandemic caused made that such a relentless shoot. Robert Pattinson saying that it's the hardest thing he's ever had to do in his life. Now, outside of the pandemic, we will not have an 18-month shoot for the Batman Part 2. We just won't. No matter how meticulous and great Matt Reeves is at his directing, wanting a lot of takes, we've all heard that about him. I still don't think, it'll really be like over a year or so. Most movies shoot, I would say, like, to give you a spectrum here, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with this, 120 plus days to, so 3 months to, like, let's just say a long shoot would be like 6 to 7 months, give or take. And that would be on the far end, like a really, really long shoot. Now, something is telling me that even though we don't have a pandemic anymore, that I still wouldn't be surprised if somehow the Batman Part 2 shoots for like up to, near 10 months. But that would be like, I do want to stress that is like a really, really long shoot. The reason why it was an 18-month shoot is because don't forget, they filmed like 35% of the movie for Part 1, and then it got like delayed indefinitely. And then as they started shooting again, months later, Pattinson got COVID, and then that got like put it aside. So like it just kept happening and happening and happening. So when you take those delays off the shoot of the movie, it does slim down quite a lot more, like quite a lot more. Now, that being said, one thing I do want to look into as well is that the movie wrapped March, I believe, 2021. So it had around a year, more or less a year exactly, of post-production for the movie. So that took it to the release date of March of 2022. That is literally when it released. So around a year of post, okay? What we can say about the whole Grace rumor here is that the Batman filming this November, and we know it won't be an 18-month shoot, and I don't even want to say like filming for like, 12 months or 10 months, because that does seem very extreme when you take in the industry standard. And even if you want to go past that because of, how big the Batman is and maybe how, deep Matt Reeves is going to get into it, even if you want to add on quite a bit more time on the shoot than that of most movies being like 4 to 6 months-ish or so. Let's just say 7-8 months, quite a far end of things. If the movie started shooting in November, and let's be generous and say the movie shot for like 8 months or so, that would take you from, let's say, November 2023 to July 2024. The movie would then still have like post-production from July 2024 all the way to October 2025. Now, yes, granted, that is me going off of the basis that the Batman Part 1 wrapped filming March 2021, released a year later after post-production, March 2022. But, even if I want to play a bit loose and not go so biblically or gospel off that of the first movie, filming in November this year does seem a little bit too early to me. Now, that's not me saying that things won't be kicking off. As I've said here on the channel, I expect from the summer onwards even, most likely into the fall, we will start getting those cool little scoops, leaks, maybe major trade reports of, this actor has tapped to play this villain maybe, or we're hearing reports that Matt Reeves is looking into this Rogues Gallery villain. But filming November, all while you can argue it's possible, it just doesn't seem extremely likely. What seems more likely, if you want to go off the fact that, the Batman, as we keep saying here, the first movie, got all of that post-production, done in that final year after it wrapped filming. Granted, they did already touch a little bit of it up because we got that awesome DC Fandom trailer when they'd only shot 35% of it, so I'm sure they were working a little bit along the way because of the unique nature that the pandemic delays gave the movie. So I'm sure they actually did start touching things up here and there, because what else could they do other than touch up the footage that they shot? But again, starting in November, when the shoot will not remotely take as long as the first movie did, with 18 months worth of shooting, and then you take into account, just to repeat myself one more time, the movie is releasing October, this is a while away, October 3rd, 2025. Well, November, shooting for, even if you want to say 5 to 8 months, you're going to have so much post time available to you, which isn't a bad thing. It's just, it makes me more think, why shoot in November? Why not just start early 2024? That seems more appropriate, because even early 2024 shooting it, add, 5 to 8 months if you want to make it a long shoot, and then you'd still have way more than enough time for post-production, because for crying out loud, you've got until October 2025 until you release the movie, even if you wanted to add a reshoot in there. Do you know what I mean? So again, I would say what Grace has said is like, it's a decent educated guess for the most part, for like when things start kicking off, but that's not what she said. She said like filming, and this means casting, filming starting in November. So, I'll hold my hands up if I'm wrong. They could decide to tackle their timetable a little bit differently, arguably, but intuitively, I just don't see why they would start so early when, if you take into account the shoot won't be as long as the first movie, and then the amount of time they'll have for post, it's just like, you could flesh it out a little bit more, and then you have to take into account they're still writing the script. Now, granted, we're only in freaking February right now. The script will be done at some point, and then, things are going to really, and this is what I've been saying for so long, kick off this year, especially midpoint of this year. there's going to be all kinds of things happening that you can't even comprehend right now in terms of pre-production. But when we start hearing about that, that's when we're going to start entering the fall. But to say that the fall or like around November is where you're already going to be filming and you've got October 2025 as the release date, that doesn't really match up to me. That's a bit premature to say that date. I would agree with you, though, Grace, if we were in another pandemic or something and the shoot was going to take a similar amount of time to the first shoot. But we're not. We're not going to take 18 months to film The Batman Part 2. Look up a lot of movies. A lot of them are done in, 3 to 4 months. Some excessive shoots with, a lot of painstaking effort put into it can take, 5-6 months. That is in exceptional circumstances. It does happen. I do want to stress that it does happen. And as I said, I still wouldn't be surprised if Reeves somehow made this like an 8+ months shoot or so. But even if you want to be that generous and add 8 months onto November of this year, you would come out to like around summer of 2024 and you think, oh, why are we working on this movie so long in post all the way up until October 2025? Yeah, I mean, the release date would be sooner, arguably speaking, if you started shooting November of 2023. So that's my response to that. It's an interesting thing. I'm not saying I'm right, but I'm not saying she's right. I've given you my reasons as to why November would be just an oddly early date to start shooting, but maybe you could argue they want to put it in the can earlier, despite the release date being October 2025, and they want all that opportunity to do post-production, whereas maybe in the first movie's instance, to be fair, they could have been doing post along the way amongst all of those delays and delays and delays. But then again, the release date could be moved up a little bit, but I doubt it. October seems like a good date. So in reality, I expect The Batman, given the new release date that we got the past month, to be shooting, very, very early 2024. It's just November 2023, just going off of what I've aforementioned, the timetable of what we have to look like with the ending release date being 2025. That's the thing we all need to focus on. You can work back from there. So ultimately, let me know what you think of that rumor from Randolph. And let me know what you think about the Aquaman 2 situation. Can't wait to see what you have to say about it. Let me know if you want me to entertain more rumors in the future. It is very easy content for me to put out and can be a bit of bonus content. Again, I think we're all street smart enough here to know that rumors are to be taken with a grain of salt, but nevertheless, it's something to keep tabs on sometimes if there's a little bit of interesting discussion to be had there. And that's one of the most arguably biggest reasons I'm doing a video like this, is to get that discourse flowing. I love reading your comments. I always read every comment. Might not respond to every comment, but I love the discourse. I love the community that we have here, talking about the latest and greatest in comic book news, and I would love to see what you think, and let me know if you want to see more ultimately. Like this video if you did enjoy it, everyone. Do consider subscribing if you want to stay up to date on all the latest news, reviews, breakdowns, and God knows what else. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you people of the DC world and universes out there and Elseworlds in the next video. Goodbye.